Probably it's because this genre itself is associated with sexual ambiguity and kind of against the gender role, gender norms that the Japanese society hold. Okay, then just I want to look back at the history of like gender ambiguity in performances as you talked about in European tradition. We have this kind of tradition. This performance is called No. It is formed around the 14th century. And then this is still, should I say popular? This is still performed under the protection of the government. So it doesn't have so much popularity in Japanese society, but people believe that this should be maintained. So as valuable cultural performance. And in this No, only male performers play both male and female figures. And then when a male performer plays a female figure, they wear a mask. You see a white mask to the left. The mask doesn't show any emotions, but it indicates that this is a beautiful woman, and her emotion is just stable. But when the woman gets furious or she got really jealous, she changes the mask to the really demonized mask, so that you could see that there is kind of misogynistic ideas behind that are changing the masks. Okay, and then around the 16th century, kabuki was formed, and at the beginning, kabuki was performed by a group of people led by a woman. And there are female performers in kabuki, but the shogunate government banned women from performing in kabuki because that was kind of associated with prostitution. So that for the sake of social order, the shogunate government banned female performers from doing kabuki on the stage. And these beautiful women figures are all performed by men, and then this tradition is still maintained. So even today in kabuki, you do not see any female performers. Only male performers were there. And kabuki is still very, very popular amongst, especially middle-aged women are the major target of kabuki performances. And even if kabuki performers who perform female figures, they are mostly heterosexual. And then they maintain EA system, like to maintain their clan, their family lineage, so that they are kind of obligated to get married and then to have sons. So the name was just succeeded to their sons. So even if kabuki seems like a kind of gender fluid, still like gender role and sexuality is really conservative in kabuki. And then as Lucy introduced, in the after the modernization, we have Takarazuka, in which all female performers are there. And even if there are male figures, male roles, only like very young ladies perform, like middle-aged men or old men or beautiful boys. And this is especially very popular among young women, and the fans are really, really enthusiastic in Takarazuka. So they form like, they form a group for just one performer, and then they wear the same t-shirts. And when the performer is on the stage, they just go to the theater together and then support the actress. Okay, then I'm going to talk about the literary tradition that could be related to boys like manga. There were some gay narratives in Edo period. Edo period is from the early 17th century to the late 19th century. There were some like wakashu culture. Wakashu culture is kind of male-male romantic relationship culture, was not openly accepted, but still it was kind of okay to have that kind of relationship in Edo period in Japan. And there were a collection of stories of some male-male romantic relation stories written by Saikaku Ihara in the late 17th century. And Saikaku Ihara was a very popular writer, but this collection didn't get popularity so much. I don't know why, but probably it was not written well. But still, you can see that with the text, you see the beautiful picture was associated with the text. And the time period are really different, but in the late 19th century and early 20th century, there were some painters who drew beautiful boys, and then you can see two examples by Takabatake, Kasho Takabatake. Actually, he drew both beautiful women and men, not only beautiful boys, but his beautiful boys were kind of looked very sexy, so that it kind of attract the homosexual attention. Okay, and then around the early 20th century, amongst female students, high school students, there was a specific culture which was called S culture. S stands for sister or sisterhood. So at this time, several female students, several teenage girls who are from wealthy families started going to school. Before that, women were not allowed to go to school, but after modernization, women are not allowed to go to school. And then in high school, these teenage girls had some very special relationship, which was called S relationship, sister or sisterhood relationship. And usually the relationship was between a senior student and a junior student, not the class between classmates, but there was a kind of age difference, so that mature female students and younger female students. But their relationship was mostly really platonic, so that they just exchange little letters, or exchange small gifts, or they have the same handkerchief. Those kind of really pure platonic relationship was there. And then their S culture was considered not really harmful to them, because people thought that this is just like the transitional period when female students were only with female students at school. So that that is the kind of adolescence, really innocent relationship. So that the schools and the parents did not really mind their relationship, but there were several double suicide cases happened, and then after that, several schools banned any sort of S culture, S relationship among female students. Okay, and then all these background thing. Okay, then here is another thing. Okay, that is related to boys' love culture, boys' love manga culture, which is a magazine called Barazoku. Bara is the rose, and Zoku is clan, and so it is called the Rose Clan. This magazine is a gay magazine, and then it was published in 1971 for the first time. And this was the very first publication that like visually present gay culture in publication. And they cover a lot of things like literature or poems or manga or even pornographic pictures. And sometimes they covered very serious issues like about sexually transmitted disease and then how to treat them. So many gay people read the magazine for the information and to share their feelings. And then I heard, it was not really officially said, but it is said that they did not really pay to the author who contributed to the magazine, because the people who contributed were mostly amateur, and then they really wanted to share their work. So it is not doujinshi, like amateur fan magazine, but the constitution, the inside of it was like the amateur fan magazine, because many people who live in the different regions of Japan just contributed their poems, their letters, their literature, and photographs. And there were several manga creators who draw mangas about homosexuality, but you could see that the image of the manga, in this manga, the protagonists were not beautiful boys that you could see in boys love manga, but just very, very ordinary men having really serious relationship with another ordinary man. So it doesn't really target like teenage girls who are fascinated by boys love manga. So this is a totally different thing. Okay. Then, against this cultural background, I want to talk about some cross-dressing in manga, because cross-dressing was prevalent in Japanese manga even before boys love manga was formed as a genre. So this manga called Princess Knight, it was published in 1967 by Osamu Tezuka. And Osamu Tezuka, probably some of you know the name of Osamu Tezuka. He is considered the god of Japanese manga. And the topics he drew were really wide-ranged, amazingly wide-ranged. So you could see some of the characters in the image on the top. He made manga about like science fictions or historic dramas or even animal stories called Jungle King. The story is very similar to Lion King actually, and Disney created Lion King many years after Tezuka's work. So I don't know what the relationship between them, but yeah, he is the god of Japanese manga, and one of his popular works is Princess Knight. And the protagonist is the Princess Sapphire. She was born as a girl, but after many elder sisters, so that her father king found that he has no successor, so that he decided to raise the youngest daughter as a boy, so that she has both like girl's identity and boy's identity. And then there were some political things inside the kingdom and some really complicated relationship between her kingdom and the other kingdom, so that this is a kind of adventure story. Even though Princess Knight Sapphire has some kind of gender fluidity, but she never questions her sexuality. She has her boyfriend from another kingdom, so that she struggles to handle her dual identity, but she never questions her sexuality. Okay, and then here is another manga which is called The Roses in Versailles. I heard The Roses in Versailles was aired in Spain many years before. Probably some of you guys saw this manga as animation. But this is an historical drama, historical fiction drama. And then in the 18th century Paris, France. And the main character is Oscar Francois de Jojo. And she is again a girl who was born after many elder sisters, and then she was raised. Probably Ryoko Ikeda, the author, got idea from Princess Knight by Osamu Tezuka. So Oscar was raised as a boy, even though she was a girl. But this is a very, very long story. And then here she experienced a lot of pains as having dual identity as women and men, because she was the commander of a royal family. And then other people other people know that she is a woman, but still many women admire her as a kind of very ambiguous figure, male, female, because she is a very beautiful man. She looks like she embodies a beautiful woman, even though she wasn't a woman. So that many women admire Oscar as a man. So that she struggles, she has the pain of dual identity, but still she maintains her sexuality, heterosexual sexuality. And then, serving as a commander of the royal family at the court, she understood that the royal family was really corrupted, so that she decided to leave her position and then join the people who were marching to Bastille. So this is a historical, even though this is a fiction, the manga has a lot of historical events. Okay, then, okay, now this is the very, very beginning of boys' love manga genre in the early 1970s. Okay, before that, okay, as I said, that the Sapphire in the Princess Knight and Oscar in the Roses and Versailles, they were not, they keep their heterosexuality. But this is the very first popular manga in girls' manga that has the homosexual male-male relationship really openly. And then this manga is The Heart of Thomas that was published in 1974 and 75 by Moto Hagio. Moto Hagio probably is one of the most talented female manga creators of this time. And she was inspired by a French movie. Maybe I cannot pronounce it. But in this French movie, there were two boys in a boarding school, elite boarding school, and then they have romantic relationship. But at the end, the younger boy killed himself. And Moto Hagio was inspired by this story, and then she started this manga, The Heart of Thomas, from the death of the younger boy. And the main character is really small. Maybe I have to start somewhere else. Okay, the whole story in The Heart of Thomas is in Germany, in a elite boarding school in Germany in the early 20th century. And then the main character, really small, is one of the smartest boys in the school. But as his father is from the south, like from Greece, he is not loved by his grandmother. His grandmother has a kind of really, ethnocentric ideas, so that he was not really loved when he was growing up. And then the manga suggested that Yuri Small was raped at a certain point, so that he always felt like he always feels that he is sinful and he does not deserve God's eye, God's love. Then even though she was one of the most smartest and then popular students, he rejected everybody. He shuts himself and then he did not open himself to anybody. And then Thomas, a beautiful boy, a younger boy, since Thomas doesn't know anything about Yuri Small's background or anything that happened to Yuri Small, but still Thomas understood that Yuri Small shut himself and he doesn't open his mind to anybody, so that he just in order to show his love to Yuri Small, he killed himself. It's really complicated, right? It's really, really complicated. It's hard to understand. But by killing himself, by sacrificing himself, Thomas wanted to show his love to Yuri Small, and then tells Yuri Small that someone is really loving Yuri Small. That means everybody loves you. God loves you. So he wanted to teach that Yuri Small is loved by everybody by killing himself. Okay, this is a very, very complicated story. And I read this manga later, when I was like about, and then I didn't really understand what that means. And probably most of the teenage girls who read this manga did not really understand what this means. But still, they were really, really fascinated by the story. Probably not the story, but probably the relationship between Yuri Small and two beautiful boys that is described in the story. Okay, and then this is another epoch-making manga that Professor Glasspool talked about, the poem of Wind and Trees. Okay, again, that story is in French elite boarding school. It's a really confined, isolated place. And then there are two thin, beautiful boys. And the boy to the right is Jill Bell. And then he was, okay, this is also very complicated. Jill Bell was raised as a pet of a very rich man, so that he was abused all the time in his childhood, and then he didn't know what love is. But through the interactions in the relationship with Serge, Jill Bell started to understand what genuine love is. But in this manga, again, there are so many dark themes like homophobia or like ethnocentrism or racism, and rape and drug and abuse. So again, this sounds really dark to teenage girls, right? And the story itself is very, very complicated. So that the people did not understand why teenage girls really love those beautiful boys manga, because the story, okay, they look just the distant other to the Japanese teenage girl, because these protagonist boys are like in German elite boarding school that Japanese teenager girls has never seen, or French boarding school, and in the 19th century and early 20th century, right? And then, but still, there are some elements probably that the teenage girls could understand or identify themselves with those boys. That is the problematic relationship with others, especially with their families, and sexually and racially and ethnically marginalized. So even if these boys were kind of looked very, very distant from teenage girls, I'm sorry, I want to talk about the mainstream mangas. You can see some images like the girl who is holding a volleyball, that kind of sports manga, or the one who is having a kendo sword girl. Those kind of things are mainstream manga that could be easier for Japanese teenage girls to identify with. They were the mainstream manga of that time. But the Beautiful Boys manga was just very, very strange to most of the readers. But the critics say that probably there was some kind of really, really twisted identification between the teenage girl readers and the beautiful boys in the manga, in like Hagio and Takemiya's manga. And indeed, Hagio, when she was planning the story for the Heart of Thomas, she thought of the protagonist girls, like teenage girls as protagonists. But then she found it was kind of difficult to continue the story. She said that when she thought of to change the gender from female to male, the character goes more smoother for her. So it's kind of rejecting, the author herself is rejecting femininity, the feminine identity, but still the author thought that it is more smoother or natural by rejecting femininity and like transgressing or just changing the gender from female to male. And when the Heart of the Thomas was made a film, actually girls acted the main characters. So the critics say that those beautiful boys were thought beautiful girls instead of boys by teenage Japanese readers. Okay, so I think you are or you were teenagers. Recently, I guess, right? Recently. And you must know what adolescence is. Okay, so adolescence period is a very difficult period, I think, for most of the people. It's a kind of long journey to search for self, right? So in the childhood, you are totally happy, not totally, but mostly happy with your family, with your teacher, with your friends. But when you get 12, 13, 14 years old, you find something like some sort of discomfort with a relationship or with a place. So that the adolescence period is a very, very difficult, complicated period. And then teenage girls in Japan also have a kind of feeling that they do not fit in anywhere. So that because of that feeling, they sympathize those, I don't know if I should say gay, probably they did not really identify themselves as gay, but just they happened to find a partner in the same sex, right? So all those boys will have a male-male romantic relationship, and then they sympathize the marginalization that those boys are having. But still, they were in the 19th century France or in the early 20th century Germany. It's distant. So they are not like boys right next to you, like your neighbors. So they are safely distant. So that keeping a safe distance between themselves and those beautiful boys, they kind of sympathize, identify themselves with their marginalization and sexual ambiguity and those things. So those beautiful boys' romantic narratives allowed girls to be kind of liberated from various types of pressures and cultural restriction on their sexuality. Around that time in the 1970s, it was not allowed for teenage girls to talk about their sexuality or to envisage their sexuality, by using, like as Hagio, the author, rejected her femininity. So teenage girls are kind of rejecting, on the one hand, rejecting their femininity, but they, on the other hand, it examines kind of sexual relationship or their sexual desire through boy-boy romantic relationship. And the social background of that time is there was a huge social changes in the 1960s and 1970s in Japan. Urbanization and improved standard of living. And at that time, secondary school education was almost universalized. Before that, not so many girls went to high school. But around the 1960s, many female students continued their education until 17, 18 years old. That means their adolescence period was prolonged, and their journey was also prolonged. And even if the society itself did not really allow women to do something new, I mean that in terms of gender role, but still having a longer period of education, women thought that they could do something else. So that their mothers, even though they respected their female parents, but still their mothers cannot be their role models. So they are kind of like exploring like everything, like gender roles, sexuality, their future, so that in that period, the boys' love gave them a kind of place to just liberate it from all those pressures. Then, after that, in the 1980s, the genre of boys' love manga was formed in Japanese society. But at that time, boys' love fandoms played a very, very important role. I don't know if Professor Garspo agrees, but probably before professional writers create more boys love mangas, fandoms made their own version of stories and then published in their amateur magazines. Okay, so this is very specific in manga and animation, that fan engagement creates something new. And then those amateur, like most of them are students, they created their own version of the stories from existing characters in Boys Love manga. Okay, then I think some of you know Captain Tsubasa. Do you know Captain Tsubasa? Okay, it seems like many people know Captain Tsubasa. Okay, the bottom one is the original. And then the story is about football, like elementary school boys who would like to be professional football player, right? Or even before, just they are playing with their rival team, and then they are competing with each other. So this is kind of pure boys manga. But Boys Love fans pick up their favorite characters and then just pair up and then create their own version of Boys Love manga and then published in their own amateur magazines. And this became really big in the 1980s. Probably late 1980s and 1990s, and then they okay, and then the two images that are shown there are from Captain Tsubasa actually. Yeah, it doesn't look like, right? Yeah, they are so creative, so that even though those boys in the bottom, you don't see like any sexy characters there, but they kind of sexualize the boys' characters in Captain Tsubasa, and then they have romantic stories. So the creativity of fandom played a very important role in the creation of Boys Love manga, and it was the site where the girls' sexuality and sexual desire is liberalized. And you can see Teenage Japanese Girls Agency here. Okay, then in the late 1980s and 1990s, various Boys Love manga was created by professional writers. So it was kind of established as a genre in Japanese manga market. But still there are some dark themes like like Kizuna, you could see a lot of dark things like murders or violence or those kind of things. That is not something you can see in your everyday life. So, but the settings were generally in Japan, not far away like French boarding school or German boarding school, but the settings are mainly in Japan. Between two Japanese boys, so the story is like becoming closer to the readers, to Japanese readers. But still, the things are not everyday things. Very dramatic, kind of eccentric stories were loved around this time. Okay, then. More recently, after 2000, still there are many dramatic, very eroticized boys mangas are published. But these days, there are many stories. In these stories, there's nothing dramatic happen. Just the top one is called Dokyusei. Dokyusei means classmates. So, and then you can see. Especially one of the boys is not very beautiful, right? Just an ordinary boy loves his classmates, and then the story just describes like his emotion and very sensitively touchy. So, and then the bottom one is the relationship between two salarymen, and one salaryman just found that he loves his younger colleague, and who is heterosexual. And you can imagine how difficult it will be, right? So the story described very sensitively describe their kind of relationship. So that these days the stories are happening right next to the readers in Japan. So that as compared to the 1970s, where like very beautiful thin boys are falling in love in French boarding school or German boarding school, the boys' love stories are kind of something more identifiable and very close to the readers. Okay, then the question is, what is boys' love for teenage girls or Japanese women? Okay, in general, boys' love readers are regarded at the transitional stage to adult mature sexuality, heterosexuality. So, as I mentioned, in the 1970s and in 1980s, it was thought that only teenage girls boys love manga, and who had no real relationship with opposite sex. So that using through boys' manga between beautiful two boys who might be themselves beautiful girls, they investigate their sexuality through that. But Waker said that even lesbian women enjoy boys' love manga before they recognize their sexuality. So that the boys' love manga is not necessarily as a transition to mature heterosexuality. It could be something for both hetero and homosexual women and men who are just enjoying playing with gender, or just enjoying gender and sexuality, or just to envisage or examine their own sexuality. So that boys' love manga could be something like have wider impacts. And then, but still, in Japanese society, women's sexuality is really suppressed. It is not really culturally allowed that women openly express their sexual desire or sexual orientation. So that boys' love manga still serve as a site for many teenage girls and both teenage and women, more mature women. And then it approves boys' love manga, and its fandom approves more alternative type of sexuality. But some of you said that the yaoi, you mentioned the word yaoi. Okay, do you know the word yaoi and fujoshi? Some of you know the words. Okay. Boys' love manga fans are called yaoi and fujoshi. And yaoi stands for no climax, no point, no meaning. So it means that people regard that many boys' love manga describe only relationship without climax, any dramatic things. And fujoshi means rotten girl. And these terms were originally self-mocking identity. So the boys' love manga fans themselves called themselves as yaoi and fujoshi. But then immediately they became derogatory labels, and other people used the term to describe those boys' love manga female fans. And then it suggests the society's discomfort and cultural taboo against women showing interest, openly show their interest in sexualized visual narratives. But recently, there are several mangas and animations in which the heroines are fujoshi or yaoi. But many of them still maintain heteronormativity and gender roles. And here is one example. 私がモテてどうすんだ. In English, it says "Kiss him, not me" by Junko. And can you imagine what kind of story it is? Okay. Okay. The heroine was a fat, not beautiful girl. But and then she loves a TV animation series. But one day, the character that she really loves died in the story. And then after that, she refused to eat. And after a week, she found that she became really slim and beautiful. And then when she went to school, many boys just found that she became very beautiful. And then 4 very handsome boys of the school asked her to date. But from her standpoint, she doesn't want to date with any boys. She just wants to watch 2, 3 boys work together, beautiful boys work together. So this is "Kiss him, not me." Okay, this is a really funny story. And I think you can see this animation on YouTube with English subtitles. So if you're interested, you can see this. But as from my description, you could tell that this has a lot of problems, like lookism and heteronormativity and discrimination against fujoshi and gay relationship too. So even if that fujoshi and yaoi is kind of merged to the mainstream culture, there are some kind of derogatory ideas and discrimination towards fujoshi and those kind of stories like boys love manga. Okay, and then as Professor Glasspool mentioned that recently fujoshi, or maybe I shouldn't use this term, boys love manga fans use a lot of technology like internet as a community site, because it is even though boys love manga is popular, it is hard to find the people who have the same taste, so that they post their comments about their favorite manga and animation or their own work. And then on Twitter or Facebook or everywhere, they post their work and then they give feedback to each other. And in fujoshi or boys love manga fandoms, giving and receiving feedback is a very, very important thing. Because some of the professional writers were amateur writers before. So the difference between amateur writers and professional writers are more gradational in boys love manga. So through the feedback and revision and recreation, they develop their skills, and then maybe sometimes amateur writer become a professional. So internet and Twitter, especially Twitter, is a very, very important site for boys love manga fans. Excuse me. And then these days, there are more women who are independent, working. They are not married, so that there are more adult women who are boys love manga fans. So that before, boys love manga was a kind of transitional period by people. But nowadays there are mature, like in their 30s and 40s, who love boys love manga and create their own version and then share the images with other fandoms. So that nowadays boys love manga is not necessarily in a transition, something that is consumed in a transition period, but that might create some sort of more permanent alternative sexuality. But of course there are some problems, because most of them use existing characters in existing manga, so that there is an intrusion of copyright, and sometimes they use some actors and idol performance as their main characters of their own works. So, and then of course that creates a kind of problem with the publicity rights. But apart from publicity rights, about the copyright issues, as I said, that the difference between amateur and professional writers are kind of gradational. So that the professional, I think professional writers are more understanding about amateur writers use the characters of their works, or just legally Japanese society is more relaxed about the copyright thing. So I have never heard that they are caught in a very serious problem about creating their own version of the stories and sharing their works in a communique, like amateur community. Okay, then maybe I should skip this because Professor Glasgow already mentioned that there are a lot of cross-dressing in the mainstream media, but there are a lot of problems here. I want to mention one thing. As Professor Glasgow said, there are so many men to female cross-dressing celebrities on Japanese TVs, but only the men to female, like who are probably born as men but wearing female costumes. And then we do not see women wearing men's clothes in TV, probably because it is like male to female cross-dressing is more accepted in mainstream media because they are stepping down from more powerful position, from men to female. But if female women would like to become like men, it's like they have to step up to the more powerful position, and then they might have more obstacles. All right. But recently, LGBTQs are more, I don't know, I put a question mark, but you can see like male-male relationship, TV dramas or animations, manga in mainstream media, like Yuri on Ice or Ossan's Love. Ossan means middle-aged man, so middle-aged man love, or My Brother's Husband. These things were shown, especially last year. We saw a lot of male-male romantic relationship dramas, but not everything was created associated with boys' love narratives. Some of them are created by like gay manga creator, like the last one, My Brother's Husband. It was written by Gengoro Tagame. He is a gay manga artist. And then this is a pretty serious story, not only about the male-male romantic, beautiful relationship, sensitive relationship, but he described the family relationship and especially some discriminatory ideas that the hetero people have. And then this manga won a lot of awards, and then a TV drama was created last year. And in these stories, not necessarily beautiful, fantasized male-male relationships are described, but more realistic relationships were seen in these TV dramas and manga. But this mainstreaming is happening not really related to boys manga community, but something else. Like in the case of My Brother's Husband, it was written by a gay manga artist. So that the boys love manga's impact is not really big in this transition. Then the question is if boys love manga contribute to LGBTQ activism or anything like issues. It is very difficult because boys love manga fans are not homogeneous. There are many different people, including both gay, lesbian, and straight, and they do not usually reveal their sexual identity. So it is very difficult to say. But when you see like Twitter posts, Boys Love, there are some posts that mentions like, okay, there is a gay parade in Yoyogi Park next Sunday. Those kind of posts that is related to political activism. But I would say many BL fans are heterosexual, and their gaze objectifies male-male romantic relationship. And they are not necessarily interested in or aware of LGBTQ issues. So many BL fans seem to maintain conservative gender norms and heteronormativity rather than openly resist heteronormativity or conservative gender roles. We could see that from their self-mocking levels like fujoshi, right? And many of the women conceal their taste. They are very active only online. But many of them said, okay, many of them proudly share the skill how to disguise that they are not fujoshi, so that they conceal their own taste or their interest in boys' love. So that means that they still keep very conservative gender roles and heteronormativity. So at present, boys' love manga has liberalized a certain type of women's sexual desire within their community, but it might not have a big impact to the outside society, especially related to sexual minorities. But we could think of their intention. Maybe we can separate their intention and the effect of their performances. Okay, as Judith Butler says, performances have some kind of effects, right? So even if many of the boys' love fans are not really aware of LGBTQ issues, or they do not intend to make any changes in the gender norms or heteronormativity that the society holds. But still, their performances, like reading boys' love mangas or creating boys' love manga, might have some effect onto the society. But it's not activism. So there is a very complicated relationship, because the existence of boys' love manga as a genre certainly informed other people of that there are people who, in a same-sex relationship. But if that is not really unaware of the effect or the reality of those people, that might have a negative impact. So here is a very, very complicated issues between boys' love manga and political activism of same-sex, like sexual minorities. Okay. But as you said, there are Yuri manga. Yuri manga is female-female romantic relationship manga. There are roughly two genres within Yuri manga. One was there for many years. That is a kind of lesbian relationship manga, and that is really sexualized. And the main readers are male. So those males just want to read that very eroticized female-female relationship. But there is another one that is more recent, but it is it is called girls' love manga, and the major readers are women. And then in this girls' love manga, the female-female relationship is described with a lot of nuances and really sensitively. in those stories, a girl just happened to find that she happened to find her partner amongst the same sex. So it's not eroticized, it's not really overtly sexualized. And then beautifully describe the relationship between two like female protagonists. And it was not really popular, but recently, just last year, there was a TV animation of Bloom Into You, and it got popularity not only in Japan but in other countries too. So the Yuri manga probably has a lot of potential, but still the market size is just 1/10 of boys manga. Alright, so then just a summary. Okay, so Boys Love Manga is a narrative site for women and girls to play with gender, and those women and girls just explore their sexuality, either hetero or homosexuality. And and then Boys Love genre. When it was created as a genre of manga, Boys Love fandoms played a very important role with their engagement and contributions and with creativity. But still, they label themselves with a very self-mocking identity like Fujoshi, rotten girls. So that means that those Boys Love manga fans maintain conservative gender roles. But probably Boys Love manga have some potential to be more transformative by probably, or maybe this is my hope, by collaborating with other genres like gay manga or yuri manga. By collaborating and establishing more understanding between these genres, Boys Love manga has potential to be more transformative. It needs more research to see to what extent Boys Love manga has impact on Japanese society in terms of gender and sexuality in Japanese society. Thank you very much.